Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining the Governor's Committee on People with Disabilities, our Accessibility and Disability Policy webinar series. Today, our topic is on disability and disasters, proactive and inclusive emergency preparedness. Our presenter today will be Lisa Trelevin, and she is one of our committee members. And before we turn it over to her, I would like to just go through some housekeeping rules. For the Governor's Committee on People with Disabilities, we have a mission to further opportunities for persons with disabilities to enjoy full and equal access to lives of independence, productivity, and self-determination. GCPD recommends changes in disability policies and programs in the areas of accessibility, communication, criminal justice, education, emergency preparedness, employment, health, housing, transportation, and veterans. The committee also supports a network of committees on people with disabilities, issues awards to promote greater awareness, and to promote compliance with state and federal disability laws. Now, we don't have a chat option in this Zoom, but if you do have any questions, please use the Q&A function. Plus, we will also post a link for the cart. That way you can adjust it to meet your needs. Most of the questions that you might ask will probably be answered at the end. We did include 30 minutes at the end of the webinar so we can have an opportunity to answer all your questions. At the end of the webinar, we will be emailing you with a link to our page with all the recordings and materials that will be available for you to review at your pleasure. Additionally, we will have a survey where you will be able to provide us some feedback on how we can make improvements or various ideas for different topics in the future. So now we will turn it over to Lisa.
Thank you so much. I'm Lisa Trelevin, and just thank you so much for having me here. I'm speaking today about emergency preparedness for people with disabilities. So whether you're a person with a disability, you care for someone with a disability, or if your work involves emergency management, I'm grateful to be able to spend this time with you and to share some resources that I hope will be helpful. So on this first slide, we have photos from the flooding during Hurricane Harvey, the picture of the snow from Winter Storm Uri, and wildfires in North Texas from 2011. And we'll talk about these are disasters that occur often, and we've had this year in 2025 flooding, winter emergencies, and wildfires so far this year as well. Next slide, please. So a little bit about me. I bring a personal and professional background that I draw on for disaster prep. And that first bullet point there, my personal experience, is by far the role that has taught me the most about this topic. So I'm the proud mom of 3 kids. Special needs in our family include medical complexity, tracheostomy, and autism. And I also bring professional experiences. I'm honored to serve on the Governor's Committee on People with Disabilities. Professionally, I have a Doctor of Education and a Master of Arts in Psychology. I have training from AgriSafe in farm response for counselors, and this helps me know about the needs of rural and remote communities. I'm also a family advisor for some organizations and a medical education family faculty. I'm on the community emergency response team, and I've served in the past as a disaster housing assistance program case manager. But of all these things, even with this personal and professional experience that I bring, my own experience is limited. So all of you who are attending, are the experts in your own situation, and your collective experience is the most valuable asset we have in disaster prep and response. So my goal today is to share some resources, but also to just equip you as experts in your own area and encourage you to become involved in the disaster prep feedback loop that we'll talk about towards the end of the webinar. Next slide, please.
Before we move on, can you I got a request for one of the audience. If you could just speak up just a little bit louder, please.
Yes, definitely. Thank you for that feedback. I will. So today we're talking about understanding common emergency preparedness needs that people with disabilities face. So we will look at some resources to meet those needs. And again, most importantly, how people with disabilities can become involved to shape emergency preparedness in their own communities. So this photo here is from Project Vortex. It shows a car driving away from a tornado. And I'll share a personal experience from my family's experience in Hurricane Harvey that kind of relates to this situation. But to start, let's look at some data on people with disabilities in Texas and their emergency preparedness needs. Next slide, please. So some data on Texans with disabilities. This data is hot off the presses from last week. This is from the 2024 American Community Survey one-year estimate, disability characteristics. So this data shows that 12.8% of Texans have a disability, but we know that this data is an underestimate because this is only of civilian, non-institutionalized population of Texas. But 12.8% of Texans have a disability, and within these different age categories, 5.4% of children under 18 have a disability. These numbers are up from last year. So last year, the overall percentage was 12.7, went up to 12.8. Last year, the percentage of children under 18 was 5.1, went up to 5.4. And then 10.7% of adults aged 18 to 64 have a disability in Texas. 26.1% of adults from 65 to 74 have a disability, and that stayed steady from, that actually went down from last year. Last year it was 27%. And then 79.2% of adults 75 years and older in Texas have a disability, and that stayed steady from last year. Next slide, please. And as I mentioned, the disasters that have occurred in Texas here in this year, in 2025, include the winter weather, the devastating flooding in July, severe storms, and also wildfires that occurred in March. So something to know about disasters in general, the number of disasters has increased exponentially, and as well as their financial impact has increased over the years. This is due to several different factors, but in Texas, we encounter a wide range of disasters because we have so many different types of land, so many different biomes that present different natural disaster risks. So part of preparedness is to know about the disasters that are common in your area, and there will be some resources later for you to identify your risks for your area and areas that are relevant to you and your families. Next slide, please. So there's a saying, disasters don't discriminate. They impact areas, the entire area, but their impact can be disproportionate. So the reason for the disproportionate impact of disasters on people with disabilities there are several reasons for this, including access and functional needs. So disasters present challenges for people with disabilities regarding evacuation, transportation, communication, medical needs, finding accessible shelters, and others that we'll talk about as we continue through the presentation. And that this population has increased vulnerability because they're often more vulnerable to the loss of essential services like power and water. They may be impacted more by disruption of routines, and disasters can limit access to essential medication and equipment. And there's often an additional mental and emotional toll that comes with disasters and the anxiety and stress that accompanies these events. Next slide, please. So there was a survey from Disability Rights Texas, the Disaster Resilience Survey that came out. This is information about 2024, and we can compare it to this same survey from 2023. And this Disaster Resilience Survey results show that Texans with disabilities feel less prepared and more worried in 2024 as compared to 2023. So looking at some of the survey data, 74% of those surveyed said they don't have an evacuation and shelter plan, and that's up from 66% from 2023. 89% say they don't know how to get emergency prescriptions filled, and that's up from 71% in 2023. 76% say they don't have copies of important documents in their emergency kit, and that's up from 65% in 2023. And regarding being more worried, survey respondents indicated that they were significantly more worried about drought, wildfires, and extreme heat emergencies than they were as compared to 2023. Next slide, please. And what we'll be talking about in this presentation are some resources that will help people to meet those specific needs that were identified in that survey. So here is a slide with a picture in the background of the National Guard helping with Hurricane Harvey, helping to evacuate a family in Houston. And I just want to share a personal experience that we had, my family in 2017 with Hurricane Harvey. So my family is myself, my husband, and our 3 children. My daughter has complex medical needs. So in 2017, a few days before Harvey hit, we actually started on a grand RV adventure. And we were going to travel the country in an RV full time for a year. So we moved out of our house into the RV, and we camped at a local park a few days before Harvey hit. We had already planned this, so it was just a coincidence, the timing. So we were at that park when the rains came in ahead of the hurricane. And we, being local to Houston, we were in the Houston area, and knowing the impact of rain and flooding and hurricanes on the Houston area, we quickly saw that rain was going to be a problem. We were parked next to this big spindly pine tree, and we were in a low-lying area like a lot of RV parks are. And in that particular area, we knew that park locked its exit at night. So we were realizing as this first band of heavy rain came in, we need to either leave now or risk being stuck here. So we decided to get out of the park and evacuate the area in the middle of this torrential rain. So we had to look for evacuation routes that would avoid creeks, as we know that a lot of roads flood that go over the creeks. We wanted to look for routes that had high ground or were going on higher ground. And we also had to think about clearance for the RV. So we tried to make our way to the freeway. We got to I-45. And as we were traveling north on I-45, we got a wireless emergency alert on our cell phones that said we were in the direct path of a tornado. It was an emergency alert, extreme level. And we could see on the weather information, this tornado was right across I-45 from us heading our way. So again, in the middle of evacuating, in the middle of the storm and the winds, we were evacuating and trying to move away from the hurricane, but we also had to change our evacuation plans to head out of the path of this tornado that was coming from the west. So again, having to exit the freeway and quickly find routes that were heading to high ground that wouldn't be flooded and that would have RV clearance. We did end up getting just ahead of the storm and the tornado. We got to Central Texas, and we were able to use the free state park admission that was available at that time to evacuees. So we really benefited from that. And we just learned so much about disaster preparedness, especially in light of the special needs that our family faces. Even after the storm passed, we were still impacted as we faced access issues and difficulties. As we wanted to return to the Houston area, we realized that there were very limited spots for RVs because a lot of the RV parks were flooded, and the ones that weren't, there were a lot of temporary workers there that were there for the disaster response. In addition, there were still areas that had no power for a few weeks, and there were roads that were flooded, so it was difficult to get to some of the areas that maybe if the area wasn't flooded, it was difficult to get to, including getting to our storage where my daughter's extra medical supplies were stored, as well as getting specialty medications, compounded medicines, and things like that. So my family just really identifies with the all the complicated parts of emergency disaster prep for families that are impacted by disability. We'd love to share this information, but also I just like to stress that each person is an expert on their own experience, and we gained a lot of knowledge and experience from that incident, and I like to share that. But that has been years ago now, and we need everybody on this call, we need your experience and your voices to continue to inform the disaster prep cycle. So next we'll talk about some resources that preparedness resources that will meet some of these needs, and particularly how to implement them. Next slide, please. So first, I have some tips for implementation, because if you're like me, I love resources, I love a good list, but I could spend all of my energy gathering all this great information and then not have any energy left to implement it. So I have first a few tips for implementation. The first being to assess your needs before reviewing the resources. And if you are in a spot where you're just starting the emergency preparedness journey and you don't know what your needs are yet, then look for a resource that is a checklist, that is a general preparedness checklist. But if you have some emergency preparedness planning done and you know an area of need, then think of that when you're looking at the resources, so you don't just go down the resources rabbit hole. Another is partner with others for accountability and for sharing tasks. And that can be true if you have a disability, if you care for someone with a disability, but also if you are in emergency management, you can partner with other community organizations or sister organizations in other regions. Then put 1 to 2 tasks on your calendar that you will do, because one action today is worth more than 100 saved ideas for tomorrow. And then going forward, make a disaster prep routine, and you can pair it with an existing routine. So if you're a family that's working on your disaster prep, you can pair it with the times that you sit down to pay bills, the times maybe when you have a nurse or an aide that comes to the home, and you may have some time freed up to do the disaster prep. Or if you're emergency management professional or at an organization, you can add this to your staff meetings or other recurring events. Next slide, please. So first, this is this year's theme. This year's theme from FEMA: preparedness starts at home. And so these are the 4 steps: know your risk, make a plan, build a kit, and get involved in your community. So I have some resources to follow that will help with these first 3 steps for equipping for at-home preparedness. And for those that are in emergency management, or you're with an organization and you want to know how to help your organization prepare and to help your constituents be safe, then FEMA offers this information. They have social media kits where you can get this information out easily to those that you serve. And so we will talk about the last step in detail, getting involved in your community, because as experts on your situation, you can inform the emergency preparedness process in your community. Next slide, please. So the first resource is the Governor's Committee on People with Disabilities. So they have an emergency management webinar page where this presentation will be on that for the replay. And they have many wonderful webinars that are on there that are great resources. I've highlighted a few here. There's the presentation on inclusive emergency planning and personal preparedness, emergency solutions for powering durable medical equipment and assistive technology, and hurricane preparedness for the deaf, deafblind, and hard of hearing community. So an action item here, again, so that we don't go down the rabbit hole of resources, the action item for you is just to read the list of webinars and see if something stands out that aligns with what you want to focus on, that need that you identified that you have. Next slide, please. The next resource is Disability Rights Texas and their disaster resilience page. So some featured resources on here. They have handouts, publications, and videos. You can get on their disaster resilience email list. They have a video, How Do You Prepare for a Disaster? There's also a publication, Hurricane Preparedness for Texans with Disabilities. And if you identify with that survey item that said that people were not aware of how to get emergency medications, then they have a medications and disasters handout that is helpful with in regard to that topic. And there's also an emergency ready sheet that can be helpful to have a checklist to go through and start your preparedness or just double check what you have planned. Next slide, please. The next resource is Navigate Life Texas. So they have a page, Emergency Preparedness for Families of Children with Disabilities. So this is like helpful for our family. So they have emergency preparedness videos. There's an emergency information form that can be a great part of your disaster preparedness kit. They have an article on working with emergency responders that can help children to prepare for disasters and understand what those interactions will be like. There's a Go Kit list, and this is another great checklist for starting your emergency preparedness. And then the Navigate Life Texas blog has blogs that are written by family members and people with disabilities about all kinds of topics that can be helpful to children and families of children with disabilities. Next slide, please. So the next resource spotlight is the Texas Department of Emergency Management. There are many resources on here that it hits on just very important categories. So I'm going to go into more detail on each of these. This includes STEER, the State of Texas Emergency Assistance Registry, power outages and backup power, alerts and notifications, as well as evacuation routes. So first we will look in more detail at the State of Texas Emergency Assistance Registry, or STEER. Next slide, please. So STEER is, the acronym is State of Texas Emergency Assistance Registry. And what it is, it's a free registry that provides local emergency management with additional information on the needs in their community. It's important to note that this is not a guarantee that you'll receive a specific service in an emergency. But if you are a person with a disability, if you or someone you loved is medically fragile, if you have access and functional needs that may impact you during an emergency or a disaster, then you can register on STEER and just let the emergency management in your community know about your needs. And it's also important to note that available services will vary by community. So if you'd like more information on how your community specifically uses this STEER registry, you can contact your local emergency management office. Next slide, please. So power outages and backup power. This is such an important topic, and this QR code goes to ready.gov power outages page. And again, there is an excellent presentation on the Governor's Committee on People with Disabilities website on backup power. So if you have a medical condition requiring electric powered devices, first, you can apply for the critical care or chronic condition status with your electricity provider. You can find that information on the Public Utility Commission website or directly on your electric provider's website. And what this is, you can register and let them know that you have a medical need that requires electric power devices. And this will let the electricity provider know where vulnerable populations are within their service area. It can't prevent you from losing power in an emergency, but it can help prioritize where they go and work on restoring power. It can also prevent the power from being turned off for non-payment. So those are all good resources to learn about to ensure access to critical power. Then the next tip is to seek backup power sources. And this is a big topic. There are a lot of things to learn about to maintain these power sources and to use them safely. These may include generators, solar power, batteries. And again, there's wonderful information on some of these resources that we've been talking about. But another tip is to check whether your health insurance or your homeowner's insurance or your Medicaid waiver, if that's applicable, may be able to help with the cost of some of these resources or just have information about it. Also, you can check if FEMA sometimes has programs that helps with these resources, or other programs may offer assistance for backup power, or at least resources about it. And again, you can contact your local Office of Emergency Management, let them know about your power dependency needs. And in the event of disaster, if you're looking for shelters that have access to power or other resources, you can always call that Office of Emergency Management to seek those resources for backup power. Next slide, please. So the next topic is the hurricane evacuation routes. So this map comes from the Department of Transportation. It was a recent screenshot, but I do like to mention that anytime you are looking into your own evacuation routes, it's important to look up the live data just to make sure that you've got the current evacuation route for your area. Something that's important to understand for our area is to understand contraflow, which is the reversal of normal traffic directions in our area. So when you have particularly a freeway that like I-45 that goes towards the coast, sometimes the direction of traffic that would go towards the coast is reversed so that all lanes are heading away from the coast. You can find information about that on the Texas Department of Transportation website. And it's important to remember when planning your route for evacuation, if you have accessibility needs or any other access, medical, or functional needs, to include those in your planning as far as choosing your route as well as the destination that you're heading to. Some things to think about, for instance, are the proximity of available hospitals. If there's a certain level of care or a certain type of facility that you would need if an emergency arose, medical emergency. Also think about emergency response times, because sometimes in rural or remote areas, there are longer emergency response times as a baseline, but in disasters, emergency response times can be further impacted if typical routes are inaccessible due to the disaster infrastructure damage, flooding, those kinds of things. Again, if you have electricity needs, thinking about the availability of electricity on your route and at your destination, the reliability of that electricity, and the availability of backup power in the event of power outage in the area. And lastly, accessible shelters. Again, you can contact 211 for information about this, and also your local Office of Emergency Management. You can share your household needs in STEER, including any access and functional needs, so that the local emergency responders know about those needs and they can help you find resources if you're seeking them. Next slide, please. So this is we're talking about accessible emergency alerts, and this graphic here it's showing a cycle, and the reason for that is that it's just such a critical topic, and there are important conversations being had about how to continuously improve emergency alert systems in Texas, and we need your voice in that conversation, you as experts in your situation. So emergency preparedness itself is a cyclical process. So the first is that people with disabilities and everybody in the area sign up for these alerts, and we'll talk about what kind of alerts are available here on this slide. And next, we'll talk about, for emergency managers and those providing the alerts, we'll talk about making those alerts accessible in diverse formats. And then the next part of the cycle, though, is that the recipients of the alerts will provide feedback about the efficacy and the accessibility of the alerts for continuous improvement. So to go through these, signing up for available alerts, there are a lot of different types of alerts that you can get. So wireless emergency alerts come on your cell phone, if it's enabled on your cell phone. And that's the kind that I got when I was on I-45, and I got the alert that we were in the direct path of a tornado. Then there's the emergency alert system that comes over the TV and radio. The STEER registry we've talked about. When you're on the STEER registry, you may get alerts from your local Office of Emergency Management. There's the National Weather Service that offers alerts, and they do have some accessible devices to transmit those alerts, some that use blinking lights or shaking devices to make it accessible for people with disabilities. There's the FEMA mobile app that offers information and alerts. And there are 911 integrated services. So there is a service called Smart 911 that is used in some areas. And you can put your family's information, the information about your medical needs and conditions into your Smart 911 profile. And it's linked to your cell phone. So when you call 911, then if the dispatch is integrated with Smart 911, they can pull up this profile and have this information that you've put in there about your family and medical needs and things that would be important for the emergency responders to know. Also, within Smart 911, you can sign up for any local alerts that have been enabled in their app. So some of these things that I've listed below where it says local alerts, some of those things are embedded right in the Smart 911 profile, and you can just sign up from in there instead of going to each individual's website. Another source of updates is the Department of Transportation about road closures, evacuation routes. And there are a lot of local alerts that you can sign up for. So a few that we've talked about already, the Office of Emergency Management. For all of these resources, you can go to their website, also go to their social media, and see how you can sign up for alerts if you'd like to get them directly on your cell phone or get them via email. So there's the Office of Emergency Management. You can look at the websites for your city, your county. Also look at local law enforcement, the police, sheriff, constable. They all may have alert systems available that you can sign up for. There are also regional or local alerts available. So warncentraltexas.org is one. Alert MCTX for Montgomery County. Alert Houston. And Corpus Christi's reverse alert. So look for these local or regional alerts that might be available for your area of Texas. You can also look for information on social media. So you can sign up for follow the information of the local agencies and local leaders on social media. And another source of information on social media, though, if you engage with it in a discerning way, is to find trusted crowdsourced information. So crowdsourced information means that you're getting information directly from a group, and this group is sharing information. It's like a grassroots source of information. So I note here to use a trusted source of crowdsourced information because you want to be discerning with what you find on the internet. But when you have a trusted source of information, then this can be really helpful in disasters, because people that are in a local area, let's say they know that a particular road has just flooded. And if that information is not on the government websites yet, it's not available in the public yet, but you can see from individuals that are in that area and they say, hey, this area is flooded, the bridge is out. That can be a really helpful source of information. And actually there is some research on crowdsourced information and how social media is providing that in disasters. So there's some really interesting research on how that can be harnessed and how it can be made more effective and safe and helpful. So if you can find trusted sources of information on social media or other ways that you connect with people, that can be very helpful. Some additional alerts that might be relevant to you that you can look for are sea levels. So I know that reverse alert in Corpus Christi, they have sea level alerts as they've got an area there on the coast. Air quality alerts. So this may impact you in particular if it relates to a medical condition you have, but also in some cases when there are air quality alerts, this may also change access to transportation. Sometimes public transportation may be free when there is an air quality alert active. Also alerts related to agricultural, livestock. if you're in a rural community, or if you're an agricultural worker, and these type of alerts would be relevant to you, your family, and your property. And also information about road closures. Again, this is something that would impact rural areas, remote areas in particular, because sometimes when in a rural area, when you have less ways to get to a certain place, then if one road is closed, then there's going to be a lot more backtracking than it would if you were in a metro area and something is closed. So just being aware of the areas that you're in, what kind of information you might need. And if it's the case that you're evacuating from a metro area into and you're going through a more remote area, keep those things in mind, the ways that road closures would impact your travel in a way that maybe you're not used to coming from a metro area. Next slide, please. So this is about accessibility of emergency alerts and notifications. So this is guidance for people that are putting out the alerts, people in emergency management, and also resources for anybody that that gets this information out to the public. You want to make sure that it's accessible to everyone. So some tips are to provide the alerts in a variety of formats. So written, audio, visual, video, and visual meaning it can be the use of blinking lights, hazards, those kind of warnings. Again, also offering it in a variety of languages that are used in your community, including English, American Sign Language, and Spanish. And if you use some of these accessibility practices listed under the accessibility guidelines, that will aid in the use of translation and the use of auxiliary aids that people in your community may be using in order to access that message. Also, it's important to deliver this information in a variety of delivery methods. So high-tech, low-tech, and no-tech methods. So you may use text alerts. This may reach people who receive those wireless emergency alerts or who have signed up for your notifications. Same thing with social media. That's going to reach people that are following those accounts. But for people that are not using as much technology or have not engaged with these resources previously, there are also make sure they get this information out on local news broadcasts, on the radio. Those kind of reach would reach additional people that may not be reached by the text and social media alerts. And then low tech and no tech, just digital message boards on the roads. I know, again, on I-45, there have been times, even though I'm signed up for all of the alerts, I try to be signed up for all of the alerts. There have been times where I have seen a message board on I-45, like this entire freeway is going to be shut down this weekend for a bridge repair that I didn't know about. So having that source of information as well, just on the freeway, will reach additional people. And also things like lights and sirens, no tech. This is going to reach everybody that can see that can hear that. And those are important ways to notify people of emergencies as well. So I have here some accessibility guidelines. So Section 508 on this website, section508.gov, there's the latest accessibility training. There are tools, policy updates, and guidance regarding accessibility. The ADA website has a resources for effective communication page that is helpful. And then there is the World Wide Web Consortium that has the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. So all of these links will bring you to these helpful resources that will help with making alerts and notifications and different types of communications accessible. And lastly, an important part is this feedback loop that we've been talking about. So individuals with disabilities, you can get involved in your community. And I have suggested ways on this next slide that you can do that. And for those that are in emergency management or in any organization that serves people, it's important that you embed diverse community feedback throughout your process in a meaningful and accessible way. So the places that we're going to talk about on the next slide are where you can find leaders in your community and develop that two-way communication. So you can disseminate information to these leaders, such kind of like community health workers. We'll talk about what that is. And you can also receive valuable feedback from these leaders throughout every step. So that means from the conceptualization of a program and the feasibility studies, every step, not just at the implementation phase, once everything's already settled. Make sure you have feedback throughout the entire process. So next slide, please.
Yeah, before we proceed to the next slide, I also wanted just to add some crucial information about, your responsibility to update your alerts. I mean, if your situation changes, for example, you may move, or if your situation becomes a little bit more dire, or you have more concerns, make sure that you update your profile and update your situation when you in your registrations, so that we can get the most accurate information. So I just wanted to add that. All right, here's the next slide.
Thank you. That's really helpful. It can be easy to forget that. So that's something that you could put a recurring reminder on as one of those tasks that you put on to double check this information and make sure it's updated. So ways for you to get involved in your community: if you are a person with a disability, if you care for someone that has a disability, and anybody that wants to be involved in the community and make a positive impact. There are lots of different ways. So the first is to become a trained volunteer. There are very great programs that offer valuable training. So you benefit from getting that valuable training, having opportunities to become involved, and it serves as an additional information source. So when you are one of these trained volunteers, you may get information that's available to these groups that is given to the volunteers that's not available to the public at that time. So some examples are the Community Emergency Response Team, or CERT. I'm a member of my local CERT team. You can get wonderful information on a variety of topics and interact with emergency professionals in your community. Of course, the Red Cross offers trainings. You can volunteer with them or just get trained, get your first aid and CPR. Stop the Bleed, Narcan, all kinds of trainings available. There's the Medical Reserve Corps, search and rescue teams, and a lot of local emergency responders, helpers, law enforcement have citizens academies. So there's a Citizens Police Academy, sometimes Citizens Sheriff Academy, EMS. You can become a volunteer firefighter in some areas, a reserve medic. And in some areas, they have a junior EMT program that is available for teenagers. Another source of involvement is becoming a volunteer advisor for different organizations. So hospitals often have family advisors, and schools in some cases will have advisory boards you can serve on. There is an organization called Emergency Medical Services for Children. They're active in the state as well as at the national level. You can become a family advisor with them. You'll join the Family Advisor Network, or FAN network. And the community health worker, this is something that is available in Texas. It is a person who, with or without being paid, helps connect people in their community with healthcare and social services. And so if you are a trusted member of a group, like a person with a disability, you can be a community health worker within your community to help bridge your community with the resources that are available. And this can be a really important role to help foster connections with people in your community and the services that are available. And just being a leader helps you to help that community. And again, you can get informed of different opportunities that are available to share with others and your family. You can also participate in government. So you can attend city council, the school board, be involved in legislative activities, look for public comment opportunities, and of course, voting to make your voice heard. And networking with other advocates. So there are organizations and different grassroots movements where you can connect with other people with disabilities or other people with similar interests. So of course, there are organizations that are disability specific. There are ones that are for general support. So like Texas Parent to Parent supports families with children with disabilities as well as self-advocates. And it can be really powerful to connect with other advocates and learn about the resources that are available and share that information with each other, and just networking to build that community. And next slide. So that we got through this a little bit quicker, but I just want to thank you so much for listening. And one of the biggest thing in this emergency preparedness cycle is having that feedback from you all. So you are all experts in your own experience in your own areas. And so I'd love to talk about what we need to improve preparedness. I'd love to take questions, and I just am grateful for your being here, and just being a part of this conversation on this important topic.
Okay, well, before we proceed to the question and answer portion, I would like to say thank you for providing us this crucial and valuable information. And we really appreciate your presentation. So now we are going to stop the recording and we will resume with the questions.